Hey, this is Rich over at TVP Live with yet another quick tips tutorial brought to you by Adobe Photoshop Elements Independent Tutorials Group. And let's jump right in. This is part 2 from our poster who had a lighthouse photo that what we did was we took out the front railings, the car over here, and the 4 people standing around over here. So let's take this raw photo and first let's make it look better. Then we're going to turn into a poster with 3 parts. So we have all of our layers here on the right, and I'm going to right click and hit flatten image. That makes it all into one image. Next, we're going to do a little color correction. It may not be quite up to the par of our poster because we're going to do this really quick. So I'm going to make a copy of this, and I'll duplicate this layer so I can have 2 different layers, one for the background, the sky and the ocean, and one for the foreground. I'm going to hit Enhance, Smart Fix, and I pretty much like that for a foreground. And we'll do that with the other layer here too. I'm going to go to Lighting, Brightness, and I'll bring the brightness up a little bit. I can bring the contrast up a tiny bit, and then go over to Enhancing, Color, Hue, Saturation. I'm going to desaturate and then oversaturate, and not even look at the saturation section there, but just look at the photo and go less, more, less, and look for something that looks really natural. And maybe a little more color than less, right around there. And up here it says plus 26, so we're going to leave that at 26. Hit OK. Now let's go to the top layer, which is our background, and get that to look good where we want it to be. So we enhanced it already with the Smart Fix. Now let's do a little bit of lighting and brightness to bring out the clouds. So I'm going to bring the contrast a little higher and bring the brightness down, and that'll give us a nice cloudy cover. And kind of play around with that till we like it. So we'll grab the eraser, and we're going to basically follow along the mountains, the whole edges here, and trace a whole section here that will lighten up or show what's underneath, which is a little bit brighter. And there we have it. I'm going to turn off the bottom layer so we can see exactly what we did. And now you can see we erased along tracing the mountains and the lighthouse. Now we grab our polygon tool, and we're going to cut out the bottom half. I'll zoom back out. Now we can see, hit delete, and that deleted out the bottom half. Now we can bring the bottom half back in by unlocking the bottom layer there. And now we have a nice colored photo that we like. So we can always readjust it or make it different tones if we like, but let's go ahead and just work with this. I would save this as it is in case you want to go back and change stuff, but for purposes of this video I'm going to merge it together. So I'm going to right click on the top layer and hit merge down. Turns it into one big layer. In other posts elsewhere, tutorials, it shows how to make this into a tri-picture. I'm going to show you kind of a slightly different but just as easy way to do it. So once again, you grab your cropping tool, make sure that this down here is the grid overlay is set to the middle here, which is it splits it into 3 sections. If I sweep the whole picture, let go, it shows you these lines of exactly where the thirds are. So you zoom in and make note of where those thirds are. In our case, in the ruler, you can see that this first line is right at 9.5, and this one is right almost at 19. So 9.5 and 19. Now we can grab the rectangular marquee tool here, and it was 9.5 and 19. So we choose the layer 1, we draw a square that's at 9.5 inches and let go. You right click on here and hit cut. Now choose the bottom layer again, and the other one was at 19. So you start up in the upper left and make another square at 19. And go to the bottom and let go. Right click and hit cut. Basically what that did is it split up our picture into 3 sections. Section number 1, section number 2, and section number 3. It's that easy. So now we put them all back together. Let's go ahead and add an empty layer underneath. So I'll add a blank layer, drag that to the bottom, choose a white, pure white brush, and take the paint bucket, and we'll paint it in. The reason we don't see it is because the photos in the front are covering it up. But let's go ahead and lock that lowest layer down so it doesn't move. Now let's draw a square to grab all 3 other layers, and you can see they're highlighted up here. Grab the bottom right corner and reduce their size. And it doesn't matter, there's no real rule, so you can make it any size you like. I'll just go ahead and do it, I don't know, say right about there. And let's grab the first 2, the middle one and the right one. So shift click, and I'm going to hold shift down and hit the right arrow key, which is it's like tabbing. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I like that. Now go to this one, the very last one. Hold shift and hit the right arrow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That looks great. It splits them apart. Now I can grab all 3 and pull them down towards the middle here. And we like that. Now let's add the drop shadow. I'm going to right click on the first one, hit edit layer style, and we want to do a drop shadow. The angle is 135, which brings it to the upper left, and the light is shining down, and your shadow should be at the lower right. You can do it whatever you want. That's just what I like to choose. The size of the shadow, first let's make the opacity all the way bright, all the way heaviest. And then the distance, I don't know, let's just try 50. And you can see it, it pops down, and let's soften it by using the size. 50. That looks good, but this drop shadow is too heavy, too far the distance for being the left one. So I'm going to change that to, let's go to 20. That looks good. So 50, 20, 100. Let's bring that 100 down to soften it up so that it looks realistic. Let's go 50%. Actually, I like 60. So remember those numbers, 50, 20, 60. The size is not going to change, the opacity isn't going to change, but the distance will, because as you move to the right picture, you want that to be further to the right, the drop shadow, and so on and so forth. So the first one is 50, 20, 60. Let's make the second one 50, 30, 60. And the third one 50, 40, 60. So this is 50, 20, 60. Hit OK. Go to the next one, right click. Edit layer, that's still at 135, and now we're going to do 50, 30, and then 60. And then we'll close that. Go to the very last one, right click, edit layer style, drop shadow, and go 50, 40, 60. And that gives each one a slightly progressive, more of a shadow as we move to the right. That looks pretty darn good. We like where it's at, and I think I'm going to quit with that while I'm ahead. This is Rich over at TVP Live calling it quits, saying over and out.